everyone, and welcome to The Safe Space. This is our very first episode of this new segment, and we're going to be talking about a man's world, understanding the male experience in modern dating. So joining us today, we have Dr. Love Jones, who is an author and a level up coach. And we have Jenard McNeil, who is a serial entrepreneur. We have Alexander Dixon, who is a certified coach. And then we have Bryce Greenford, who is an educator with OCPS. So we're going to start the conversation today with a question, but before I do that, we're going to be basically picking a number. So if I call your name and ask you to pick a number, you're going to go ahead and pick that number, and then we're going to talk about that question. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for the first question I have for you guys, since this is the safe space and we're all about having the hard conversations in healthy ways, my first question for you guys is, when is the last time you felt safe in a relationship?
Yeah.
It's the looks for me. Let's talk about it.
Well, you sure you want to start this off with this one? That just had a nice silence across the board.
I'll just say I felt safe this morning when I woke up. So I've been married for 2.5 years now. So, and I have a great relationship with my wife. So I feel pretty secure with mine. But that came with a lot of communication, a lot of figuring out who we are together as a partnership, and who we are separately as people too, and how we work together. So that safety did take time to figure out.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I want to hear from, I guess I'll just, Alex, what about you? When's the last time you can remember feeling safe?
I always feel safe. Relation.
Physically or emotionally?
Just with self, the relationship with myself, and then calling in a partner that also matches my safety, right? And so, I always feel safe. Whenever I feel uneasy or I'm not safe, then something that don't work for me. So I prioritize my safety.
Yeah. I like it. Jenard, what about you?
Oh, okay. I gotta kind of go the opposite of what he just said, and say, I can honestly say, I really never felt safe. Emotionally, I feel like, every woman that I talked to chose themselves over just us.
Oh, wow.
So, definitely, I can say I've never felt safe. So that's my answer.
I think my answer is kind of in alignment, but I'm going to say I take accountability. For me, never put myself in a position to know what it means to be safe, and never setting that boundary so I can be safe in a relationship. So for me, growing up, I grew up in North New Jersey. It was a safe environment that I grew up in. So I'm used to never being in a safe environment in the first place. So being in a relationship that was not safe was never really a big deal to me, because that was normal. And so I could say, for the most part, I've had moments of that, but I never had a relationship where I could say I was safe.
Wow. So now I'm curious. So when we talk about safety, especially emotional safety, what does that look like for a man? Can you describe what that would look like, feel like, be like?
I would say safety for a man is his ability to be himself, his emotional self, his toxic self, without feeling like he's judged or making him seem like he's less of a man. And one of the things that gets thrown around that kind of hurts my nerves, especially with women out here, is they will say they will use the term boy to describe a man that they feel is not manly, right? And my biggest problem is because slavery, they called us boy. So when you use the term boy, you're just demeaning him further, even if he doesn't represent what you call manhood. The term boy gets thrown around too much, and that's going to cause not any man to feel safe. So I think just in that regard, I think we could learn how to cultivate safety by acknowledging that a man, because by definition, man is a adult male. So if he's an adult, he's a man. So just love that person. So for me, I think those are the ways we can get started.
Okay. Then do you have some thoughts on that? Like you were thinking about something.
I would say that question is kind of subjective.
Okay.
For everybody who get asked that question, I think you're gonna have multiple answers. What safety looks like to me is just being able to, be who I am. Sometimes I'm silly, I'm jokeful, and being with the opposite person who's always serious, I feel like you're gonna bump heads a lot with a person who's always serious. They can't take your jokes or whatever. They can't, so I honestly feel like, it's a safe space for me to be able to be serious when I want to be serious, be jokeful when I want to be, and having that person to actually just understand who I am, who she's with, and, take it in and be able to be jokeful with me when I'm jokeful. And, I think that, that's why I stand with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I was expressing to you all before we got on here was that I really wanted to create a space where men can talk about their feelings without having to deal with combative responses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even just now listening to what you guys were saying, so my approach to that would be, okay, so what I heard you say was, when a woman degrades me, when a woman doesn't know how to have fun or is always serious, when a woman makes me feel judged for expressing how I feel, those are the things that don't make me feel safe. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would add too is when your vulnerability is weaponized against you.
Oh, that's a big one. Okay, can you explain that a little bit more? For those
Yeah, so let's just say, and I've dealt with this in past relationships where I would say in a vulnerable moment, express it. And then when there's an argument that happens, whatever you express get thrown back at you as a way to get back at you. So it kind of levels the playing field in a sense. It's really like a cheap shot.
Yeah.
But, when you do that, that develops distrust. And at that moment, I don't feel safe no more.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like a betrayal of trust because you trusted somebody with that sensitive information and then they turned and used it against you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally get that. Let's hear from this side of the couch.
So, I feel what y'all are saying. Like I was saying, my relationship right now feels safe. That's because that's built on almost 8 years at this point of being friends, being in a relationship, being married, learning each other's communication style. But I've been in relationships in the past where the communication was not there whatsoever. We'd have fights all the time. It's very emotionally draining. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people, especially kind of in our generation and the generation beneath us, Gen Z, they're dealing with that right now. There's a big generational communication gap happening right now that it seems like people are struggling. They're struggling to be able to have a clear path of communication between each other, and the solutions are varied. I don't know what's the right solution for everybody, and I think kind of like you were saying, it's subjective. You gotta figure out what everybody's partnership is like. Your partnership with one person is going to look way different than the next person who might come along.
Yeah.
So
I feel good.
yeah.
What do you think, Val?
Your question, so I don't want to have a misstep. The follow-up question.
Describe what safety, emotional safety would be like for you in a relationship.
Comfort. Somebody that adds to my life. I just think that when you release the need and the want of a partner, and you get into yourself and go back to the childhood version of yourself. And if you can have somebody that's safe, that you trust to go back with you, that way that you're not alone in that space. And then give that little version of yourself a hug and nurture that little version. And then, really do the steps to heal and work on for self, not for partner, but for self. You'll attract or call in a partner that doesn't make you feel And when I didn't have when I did have those partners, I guess in the past, I just took personal responsibility because I co-created that relationship. I co-created that situation. I co-created that experience. And so I got to take personal responsibility for me to grow, because that person moves on, but I have the pieces to progress.
Really good.
So
Sir.
I just think safety is always going to come back to how do you feel, how do you make yourself feel safe?
That is so good.
And I want to bounce off a point, kind of that point, but also kind of the point that Dr. Love Jones brought up. You know, that kind of like some people, when they, you know, try to have an argument in a relationship, they might choose to denigrate. They might choose to use the language that will make you feel small, make you feel emasculated. But you got to, when you're in a partnership with somebody, treat them with respect. You know, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but like, if you're going into a relationship with somebody that you want, especially somebody you want to have as your life partner, you need to think about, am I going to be comfortable being with this person for the rest of my life? Oh, you know, and if I'm not, what am I doing here? And also, like, if I want to be comfortable with this person for the rest of my life, am I treating them with the kind of respect that they deserve? And are they treating me with the kind of respect that I deserve? So, you know, it builds on each other. You treat them with respect, and hopefully they treat you with respect back. And if you're not getting it, you gotta evaluate partnership.
Yeah, and I want to also add too, and that's in what Alex said, touched on the first thing I said was, I took first blame because I didn't know how to set that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know how to set a boundary, then you got to realize that that's on you, that you allow someone to disrespect you. You allow someone to betray your trust, right? If you had that boundary in the first place. So for me, what I had to learn is that I had to love me the way I need to love me, so I can create and cultivate a loving relationship where a partner can love me on that level. So for me, and what he said was so true, you got to be your own safe space, right? And that's where it starts with for yourself. And and that's the thing that I had to learn within my journey, is that I got so used to living in the environments that I lived that I didn't realize until I moved to Florida that, oh my God, safety feels this way. Wow. So when you're growing up in a toxic environment, safety is not your priority, you know? So now when you get older and as you value yourself, you start to realize, oh, it feels good over here to be safe. And that's how you set that boundary, by starting with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost like to go off of what you were saying with like being introduced to what safety is.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like your nervous system gets a break. You know, like you have to reset your whole nervous system to be like, okay, I don't have to fight or flight anymore. And I can breathe. I can relax. You know?
People can't really, maybe bold to say, but people can't really heal people. If you can heal the nervous system of someone, like by making them feel safe, then they can heal their heart. But that's their journey, not yours.
Right.
That's a fact. That's a good point. But like you guys said, it's a journey. It's about figuring yourself out and doing the work and putting that time in, you know? I wanted to piggyback off of something you said, Bryce, before we move on.
Yeah.
About respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the issues in relationships that I personally heard about so far have to do with, at least from the male perspective, respect, right? Like the way that, how can I put this? Women value love. If you want to feel loved.
Right.
But our equivalent, or your equivalent to that would be respect. Right. So what love is to us, respect is to y'all. Okay. It's super important. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to, as women, and this is just my personal take on that part, understand how powerful our vows are when it comes to, you know, respect and how we can either help to build up or tear down.
Right.
And I think it's unfortunate that we do use our mouth that way sometimes, but that's also where our process comes in.
Yes.
You know, but I think that's really huge, like to be mindful of, like to let women know to be mindful of the words that we use so that we're not demeaning or disrespecting or making the person that we love feel unsafe. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And, you know, it's kind of, it goes, like you're saying, it's how we use our words, how we choose to communicate with our partners is a big part of what makes a relationship pass or fail, you know. It creates an environment of mutual trust if you know that you can come to your partner with your problems and know that that's going to be respected. And that doesn't always mean, like, as a man, that you're going to get a free pass for everything like that you do. Like, let's say, oh, I went out drinking with my friends like 5 nights in a row and didn't come back until like 3 a.m, didn't tell my wife where I was, wouldn't get a pass. But, you know, a reasonable expectation where like I just didn't call her back once, and then it's like, oh my God, you didn't call me back. You know, you must be out with some or other, you know, you ain't gonna get that kind of treatment where there's like a level of respect, like, you know, like, listen, I'm gonna get back to you. There's security in a relationship, you know, because there's levels to it. People have different expectations, but you've got to communicate those expectations to your partner. What kind of relationship am I trying to have, right? Yeah, that's my point.
I love how we have all these different like perspectives on the conversation. We have the married perspective, we have the, you know, the single perspective. So I think it's really cool to have like the 2 different dynamics here. Alex, pick a number for me.
4.
4? All right, let's do 4. Love 4. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
All right, question number 4. Okay, yep, this is right up your alley, Alex. What has your experience with dating taught you about yourself?
It's taught me about myself. I mean, as of recently, it has taught me a lot about my heart. You know, being raised with 2 sisters and a mother, and going through that journey, right, of a healing journey, right? And those journeys aren't always fun.
Yeah.
Right. But just knowing that, you know, I've watched the woman in my life nurture me and take care of me and provide for me, and, you know, taught me how to communicate my frustrations without anger. Right. And then so when I meet a woman, I really can't say I had any bad experiences. You know, I met some amazing women, but at the end of the day, they just weren't for me. Not to take anything away from them, whether they were selfish or not. Maybe they were selfish because of their upbringing, right? And maybe I was a giver because of mine, right? But when that lack of boundary, you know, is in place, our expectations, our values are, you know, misaligned. For me personally, I just never had a problem like moving on. You know, so it just didn't sit well with me. If I didn't feel like we can throw the word masculinity in there, right? And feminine. And whenever I felt like, I don't know if I could cuss, but like if I felt like a little child, I guess, and I couldn't speak up, right? Then that was something that made me feel uneasy. And if I value growth, and if that person, right, maybe that person had an example of maybe her mother met, you know, or had maybe her mother and her father, maybe they show her love out of fear, right? And so when it comes to me, if I go outside, it's control, right? Trying to dictate how I do things, you know. And so a lot of it has to do with, like unresolved trauma, right? But you can go on that journey with people, but they have to continue to do the work for self. You know?
That's it. We keep getting back to drawing these boundaries. We may have to unpack that a little more in a second. But Jannard, same question. What has dating taught you about yourself?
Definitely, and I think I told you this a while ago as well, putting more love into myself than I do someone else.
Unpack that for me.
Yeah. I guess with the way that I was brought up and the way that, you know, I saw love, I always looked at a love standpoint from a protective role. So I always, you know, put the protection of them over myself. their feelings, their body, I protect the person who I'm with more than myself. I allow them to get off their chest what they want to say. And it's like when they get me upset, then I gotta kind of like not say what I want to say, because I know like I'm gonna try to hit back hard. So like I would say like learning how to communicate better would be, a better thing for me. And just, I don't know, like communication. I would say that communication is real big. In a relationship, I guess it taught me that I didn't really know how to communicate as well as I thought I did.
Wow.
A lot of people feel like when they're talking, they're communicating, and that's not true. So, yeah, I definitely had to go back to the drawing board and get help and understand that just because you're moving your mouth, it doesn't mean you're communicating. So, definitely, I feel like sometimes we got to go back to the drawing board and understand just because we're a man and women say we're a boy, sometimes when women say that we're a boy, they're not saying it in a way of, racism. They may be saying it in a way of, we don't know how to communicate, or we don't know how to do this. And they're seeing that we don't know how to do that. So they're like, oh, that's what boys do. Little boys, they communicate like that. So sometimes we might have to go back to the drawing board and see that they said it like that. And it's like when a woman talk like that, sometimes they need to work on how they say things. And we got to actually take in things as well. Like, what does she mean by that? And that could be the next follow-up question for her. What did you mean by that? When you called me a boy, like, and then it's like a twofold thing. Like, she can work on how she communicate with you, and then you can work on your overall thing on how to communicate, period. So like, with me, I definitely had to go back to the drawing board because I didn't know how to communicate well. So that would be something that I actually learned about myself. Yeah.
Okay. So I definitely get what you're saying about like, and I appreciate the transparency first off, of like trying to understand what she meant by what she said.
Yeah.
Instead of just automatically getting offended. But even so, like you said, it's not okay to just demean somebody because you don't understand them or because you don't agree with the way that they're behaving. And so I guess what you were basically saying is like you think sometimes women say that to indicate there's an area of immaturity.
Yeah, and the way that they said it could be fixed. So I think that in every situation, it's a learning experience there for both sides. And it's up for you to actually see where it's for you to learn.
Right.
And she have to do the same thing.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Can I just say, like, I don't subscribe to the whole, like, you're a man or you're a boy mentality. And that's largely because I know a lot of great men in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe that all men are dogs and all that other crap that you hear, because I know too many great men, and you guys are a great example of that actually uphold the standard. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to address that. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, touch on what you said. I do agree with what you said. Everything that's said to you doesn't have to be what you take it as, right? It's always an impactful moment. But I mentioned that for the reason is one person can say, all right, we can unpack it. But for another person, that feeling is the meaning. And when we understand my feelings are not logical, right? You can say something and I remember I grabbed a woman while arm, not like on a rough way, but just to grab her attention. And she blacked out because she had experience where someone violated her. So emotions and triggers are not based off logic. It's based on feeling, right? And when you say something that makes someone feel low, whatever is on that vibrational level all feels the same. And that's kind of why I say women should be wary of the words they use, because you don't know if you want a man to be better, you don't speak to him low to expect him to rise to the king that you want him to be. You got to speak up to the king who wants to be entitled to be to that. And if you're not willing to speak up to him, then be willing to deal with the fact that he might be the very manifestation of what your idea of him is.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe we all should be wary of our thoughts or the things or how we speak to each other. Just like I gotta be careful how I speak to a woman. I can't just be lashing out B's and H's and all these terms if I want her to be the queen that I want her to be,
Right.
or the goddess that I want her to be. So we have to learn how to be able to express how we feel without the meaning.
Yes. I agree.
And that's the main point of that. So,
Right. You know how, like, when you say, like, reach boundaries?
Mhm.
A boundary that I would use was, hey, can you please not talk to me like that? If you do that again, I'm going to have to leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And 3 of those for me, 3 boundaries crossing of mine, I exit. Right? I'll let you know why it is that I'm exiting. So when you lay your head on that pillow at night, you know why you're not welcome here anymore. Right? But also to be in a space where if me and this person is together, then we're both trying to go deeper than we have ever been.
Yeah.
But I will not be disrespected, you know.
So I got a point I want to build on that too, actually, and off your points, it goes back to kind of why we're here in the first place. That a lot of women or a lot of people trying to date men in the first place don't know what's going on with men, don't know why we're having the issues we're having.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that is a lot of men don't know how to communicate their own boundaries sometimes. And I think it takes a lot of self-learning on our part to get to the point where we can even express what kind of boundaries we need, or even to know what boundaries we need. And if, let's say, a woman is interested in a man, she's trying to pursue him, but her whole life, or at least for the majority of her life, has kind of been validated in being able to feel comfortable with her feelings. But then she goes to a man that is not comfortable with expressing his feelings whatsoever. Because a lot of men aren't. They're treated like anytime you are too happy, oh, you're being a little effeminate. Anytime you're too angry, you get cussed out, or you might get in trouble with somebody if you're too angry, you know, and you're not, but at the same time, you're not taught how to regulate those emotions. And that, as an educator, is something that I see a lot. Kids aren't taught how to regulate their emotions a lot. And that ends up falling back on us as educators, or falling on their parents. But a lot of times, these kids make it to adulthood, and then it falls on their partners.
well, and what I wanted to say is that's the major part. We're never been taught how to regulate emotion. We're taught to not have emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Being a Caribbean American as I am, growing up in that household and growing up, it's like having emotions as a boy was synonymous with being weak.
Yeah.
And so we're never taught that it's okay to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And never taught to say it's okay to express pain. If it's not expressing aggression, then it's seen as weak. So how we growing up, is whatever emotion has to be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you take that and you level up with hormones and a big voice and a big presence, you can see how destructive that can be. It can be for an adult.
Right.
So that's why it's important that we have these conversations. That number one, crying is a form of detoxification, meaning whatever ill energy you feel, you cry, you're releasing. And feeling pain, we deserve empathy too. We deserve to understand that we have our own emotions and our own frustrations and that we deal with. And the best way for us is to make us feel normal in that moment, not make us seem like we're strange, lesser. Because especially if you look up history, we have a big problem when it comes to anything that makes us look weak. And that's a very deep history understanding. So our presence needs to be respected whenever we're feeling our emotions.
Wow.
I got my mom will be up. She would when she watches this, she's not. So I'm also Caribbean and Hispanic, right? And so my mom always taught me to honor my heart, like, in that emotion, in that space. And she said, man, you know, if you're gonna cry, Like, go do it in your room, but don't let nobody see you with your head down. And I feel like there's power in that, because when people do see you with your head down and your head in your chest and you are crying, you are sad, most people look at that as a position of weakness, right? And so learn how to deal with self, learn how to pray, learn how to go to people that you can trust, you know, and it's important that we do create healthy community, right?
Right.
But there are people who grow up in households from fear and survival. And then you cannot have love. You can either have one or the other. I grew up in a household off of love, you know, and so that's why I say a lot of things that I don't think that I've had a hard life. I think that my journey may have been different, right? But I do think that I've had challenges that are different than everybody else's experience, right? It's the journey of life. Like, so I love it. But I do understand what he's saying. In a Caribbean household, you are very much, it is a structure. It is, this is what you're gonna do. Men work hard labor jobs, men don't have. But I think that my mom just took an alternative route with me, because she saw that I was shutting down literally at like 13 years old when you're talking to me that way. So.
Wow, shout out to mom. Oh, mom. Gotta commend that. Right, go ahead and pick a number for me.
Let's do 7.
Okay. Stop that.
Hell, I ain't get to answer that question. No, I'm joking.
Okay, question 7. Okay, what are some steps that you think men and women can take to try to bridge some of the divide that we have today in modern relationships? We kind of touched on a few, but let's go in a little deeper.
Patience, having patience with your partner. If you're going into a new relationship, let's take it from the new relationship aspect. If you're going into a new relationship with somebody and you want to get to know them, you want to understand, hey, what brings you peace? What makes you feel safe? I want to be that safety for you. I want to be that peace for you. Say that in and of itself is a good thing, but actually sitting there, having the patience to let them work that out, because maybe they haven't thought about it, or maybe they haven't had the space or the time to think about it. Because a big thing that I have seen with some of my friends' relationships, and you know, the ones that they have had successfully or failed, is that they have had patience in the success for each other and for building the kind of relationship that they need to be the best version of themselves and to help their partner be the best version of themselves as well. So
I love that.
Yeah. You can go that way. Honestly.
All right, Denard, I haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Yeah. You know, I was hearing what he was saying. You know, when people see you crying, they look at it as, you know, a form of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually just hit me that I think that when people look at you when you're crying as a form of weakness, is it's not a mature way of looking at things, I would say. Because if anybody look at you when you're crying and see it as a form of weakness, I feel like it's them basically saying that they don't have those rough moments or tough moments where they cry. You can go in a room, but you still cry. It makes me more of a man to show my emotions in front of people. So I would say, like, when people look at you, like, I cry wherever. I definitely cry wherever I'm at. If I feel something, I definitely cry where I'm at. I just cried at work, and I work in a hospital. You know, like, anybody who saw me crying, they saw me crying. But nobody messed with me if you ever felt it was weakness in me on the level where you will put your hands on me, it's totally crazy. So it's like, definitely, I think that it's crazy for somebody to look at it as a weakness, because what would be weak about that person? That's basically saying, if you look at me and say weak, it's like, do you cry? Have you cried? Okay, well, you've been weak as well. So I definitely would say that crying doesn't make you weak.
I agree.
And what you were saying, basically you were saying have balance. You know, a lot of people don't know how to balance their emotions and their feelings and what they're saying. So just have balance. And it's a learning process.
Yeah.
That's definitely learning. A lot of people are not even around the right people to even learn that. So you see a person who you're attached to and you just be like, man, I want to learn from them. And they may be failing in that area. And they try to teach you. Now they're putting, something that they never had teaching on over something that you never had teaching on. Now you double scar. So I just feel like it's find right people, like he said, the community of people, who you can learn from and actually vet them out for a while. Like a friendship and a relationship is kind of the same thing. When you have friends, like I've known her for years. So I know it's a lot of things that I can look at her and say, I can learn this from her. But a lot of times we see people because they're dressed nice, they have money, they have nice cars, and be like, I want to learn this from them. And a lot of these people be portraying.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we look at them and we start to pick up things from them and we don't even understand. They're not even giving their authentic self.
Right.
So then we start to pick up a generic version of who we want to be, who we try to be, and we don't even realize that we're taking ourselves more. So definitely I've learned in my 34 years of living, just I find the right people that genuinely love you and can genuinely tell you when you're falling, when you're failing, and just keep learning. So yeah, life is a learning process.
I want to back you up on that because I'm kind of grieving. I'll tell everybody. I lost my grandmother a week ago, right? And I know by the time y'all see this, it's gonna be whatever. But as it's recorded, I lost my grandmother a week ago. What I've learned is that I don't like crying. Right? Crying doesn't feel good. So what I'm not doing is hiding my tears because who I am at that moment, there's nothing weak about me. So I realize that I'm strong even in my most vulnerable moments because strength is vulnerability, right? And understanding that there's nothing about me weak. So even if I cry, I don't feel weak. I don't feel lesser. But because I don't like that feeling, I've learned to normalize the conversation, express it, don't hide from it. Realize that, and then the tears come to my eyes and they come out.
Yeah.
So we've learned to protect ourselves, but in reality, we look backwards. It's ourselves we need to express.
Yeah.
And that's who it is. Who we are, we taught to protect our heart, protect this person. The truth is, our heart protects us. If you understand metaphysics, our heart protects us. So the reason why people get heartbroken because you were suffocating your heart, so your heart didn't get enough strength. So when something happened, you took it harder than what you really supposed to take. So we all realize that our true self needs to be expressed. Emotions are meant to be expressed, not held. That's why it's called emotion, energy, motion.
Yeah.
If you're not expressing emotion, then you're only going to put yourself in a state of being that's not going to be true to who you really came here to be.
It's the breakdown for me.
I was just gonna say, like, that's stuff that people don't know. So you just taught me something. And like those type of teachings is what people actually need to learn. But if they actually just looking at emotions as a feeling, then people gonna keep feeling in that area. So I think the breakdown of it was dope, what you just said.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so good. Okay, so one more thing before we get out of here, and I feel like we have to do a part 2 because
I was like,
barely even scratched the surface of all the things we could have talked about. But I really appreciate all of you being willing to share your transparency and to share your experiences while you've been on here. But before we go, I got one more thing to ask y'all. I need you to take about 30 seconds to tell me one thing that you think men and women can do to start facilitating the healing process as far as like bringing us all closer together. So I guess I'll start on this side.
All right. One thing they could do, that men and women could do to facilitate a healing process, start to get that kind of connection back, understand each other, is listen. You need to listen. You need to actually sit down and listen to your partners. You know, if you're not actually taking in the words that they're saying, holding it close to your heart, and processing it, understanding where it's coming from, and asking them questions. If you don't understand, ask them. That's the whole point. Learning is key. That's why I became a teacher. I love the process of learning. I like learning myself, and I like showing other people how great learning can be. That's true of relationships too. You gotta listen in order to learn.
That's awesome.
Thing that man and woman could do better to heal together. I don't know, be open to receive love.
Okay.
Like the good kind, right? Be able to receive love and know that every day is not going to be sunshine and rainbows, you know, and it's okay to not be okay, right? Because I think we all struggle away. And so just ask yourself, you know, what do you want in a partner, right? Write a list, write that down. Go on your phone, and something that I do and I teach my students is put a green charger emoji next to their name if they give you energy. Put a red charge emoji if they drain your energy. Really look to see who you giving your energy to. And then also, you know, get around more people who teach you things, right? Podcasts, places like this, social media following. Maybe you gotta stop scrolling so much and start unfollowing people and subscribing to people who actually teach you something. Open up a book, I guess.
All these All right, Jannard.
I would say find a relationship coach.
Good.
Like, and I know that's not the norm, but I know a relationship coach and she dope. And definitely before, like when you come with your mate, you know, first thing she do is give you a test. And she asks you questions about your mate to try to break down like what areas the relationship need help in. And I think that that's a great start, because now you have a base of where to go from there. A lot of people are not used to that type of growing, but I mean, what we've been doing is not working. So, you know, definitely, you know, if we want to try to grow in the right areas with that person and go to those places that, you know, we've never been before, we need help. We got to understand that doing it by ourselves is not always the right thing to do, because if we could do it ourselves, we would have been done it. Yeah. So yeah, I would say get a relationship coach and grow from there.
Awesome.
I would say fill your cup up first before you start pouring into others. Think when we start to realize who we are requires our own, the love that you want to receive from someone, you got to give it to yourself. The love that you want to give to someone, you want to give it to yourself. And if everybody takes this approach, it will be helpful, because now you can incorporate love into what you really desire within each other.
Yeah.
See, we often try to love from a struggle place, and love and struggle is two opposite frequencies. You can't bring that together. So you got to, so the truth is, if you have abundance of love within you, then you have abundance of love to share. If you have a lack of love within you, then you're going to be lacking in love out there.
Ooh, nice.
Not the love.
Right. All right. Well, once again, thank you all so much. This was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Because I feel like there's so much that we can learn, especially as women, like about the male experience, you know, to really help us to understand you all better. And I appreciate you guys for trusting me enough to come on here and talk.
Or is happening to do something.
I appreciate you taking charge, being a woman, seeing the conversation, realizing that we need to be heard, and creating this safe space for us to be able to do that. So,
and stay tuned. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Well, guys, this was our first episode of The Safe Space. Let us know what you think about it in the comments. And you will also be able to find all of our guests' social media, so you can go ahead and look them up and hear more of the wisdom that they have to share with you all. But yeah, this was The Safe Space, a man's world, understanding the male experience in modern dating. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.